So, welcome, John.
Thank you, James. Good to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Would you mind just telling our audience who you are, what your role is, and what your company is?
Of course. Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all, for the opportunity. My name is John. I'm co-founder and CEO of Flotilla. And Flotilla is a sustainable consulting and technology business. We support asset managers, SMEs, and enterprises measuring their carbon footprints and implementing sustainable transition plans. And we also help with their ESG strategies as well. So that's us in a nutshell. We've been going about 4 years and have a team of about 18 people today.
That's fabulous. Thank you for that intro, John. What I'd like to do, though, is get a little bit of an insight to the person behind the business, if I may. Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what your path has been to this point in time?
Of course, yeah. So my background, I was a corporate lawyer for 8 years, working in London and then Leeds. I was born in Bradford. I'm a Yorkshire guy. And
Bradford City fan?
Bradford City fan, of course, of course, yeah. And come on the Bantams. Yeah. And so as a lawyer for 7, 8 years, and actually specialising in private equity advice and doing deals. And as a consequence of that, I moved into private equity as an investor back in 2003. I worked within private equity for 17, 18 years, worked for 3i PLC, 10 years as a partner at Phoenix Equity Partners, and latterly came back to Yorkshire to support the establishment of a fund called North Edge. So did that, and then in my mid-40s, had a very grown-up midlife crisis, as I pretend, and actually just decided I wanted to sort of roll the dice and do something completely different. And that's where Flotilla was born. So that's
something for yourself.
Yeah, I think so. I think sometimes you have a good look at yourself and you go, I've got 15 years left. What do I really want to do, and what's going to fulfill me, and what's it all about? And so I took the risk and started Flotilla, and haven't looked back.
So how did you get to the decision point, if you like, as you're obviously working on your private equity deals, that you wanted to do Flotilla? What was it that made you think, right, this is what I want to do?
I think it was a number of factors, actually. I think it's really normal for people in business to evaluate themselves in their 40s. They've been struggling, working really hard, achieving plenty, but also it can get quite monotonous. It can be the same routine over and over again. And I reached the point where I've been operating as an investor, as a partner for 17 years, and I just thought, this is like the best life MBA you could ever have. You meet all these businesses, all these entrepreneurs. You see the good, the bad. You see great success. You see failures.
Of course you do. And
from that, sometimes you've got to ask yourself, what do you do with that insight and that privileged experiences that we've had? And for me, I just felt an itch that I needed to scratch, which was, let's have a go at something. And the other side of it, if I'm being candid with you, James, was a bit about purpose. And I think that's another thing that happens for us all at different times. But for me, I felt, private equity was brilliant. I thoroughly enjoyed it, loved it, but it was very financially orientated. And I've always had a passion for the environment, always been purpose-led. And so I wanted to combine that commercial experience with purpose.
If I can take you back yet another stage, were you sort of aware of the environment as a child, running up in the malls, or is this something that sort of developed over time?
Definitely. I think, I'll tell you the story of how we founded it in due course, because it's relevant to that. But unquestionably, growing up in Bradford, spending time in the Bingley malls, Ilkley malls, and I think you really spend a huge amount of time outdoors, and you see the world as it is. And then, as a consequence of that, I actually ended up being responsible for the industrial and energy sector for one of the funds, and so we were looking at environmental security products. We were looking at all sorts of energy products, and you could see what was going to be needed to drive change. And so the connection between what's relevant, what's my experience, how can I help, with something that I was really passionate about. I spent a lot of time, from Bradford, you'd be really surprised by this, but I spent quite a lot of time dinghy sailing at Denholm Sailing Club, which is on the moors, which is a tiny little reservoir. But again, just that outdoors experience just came to the fore, and wanting to do something, just came together really.
So let's get to the point where you did found it. Just tell me how that actually came about.
So it was actually through COVID, as I'm sure a few experiences where, back to that point about the environment, there was no planes flying, the skies were blue, that first spring, terrible scenario we're facing, but, it was otherworldly, wasn't it? How quiet it was, no cars, you could hear the birds sing.
Absolutely.
And actually lots of time at home reflecting. And when we were allowed to go for walks and go out, I spent some time with two very good friends of mine who are my co-founders, Mark and Anthony.
Just being clear, you were 2 meters apart.
We were 2 meters apart. I love the guys, but we were 2 meters apart.
Excellent.
And, we all had different experiences. We were all at different points, but we all wanted to do something at some point together. And it felt that whilst we had that time through COVID, we had the opportunity to think very carefully about it and come up with the concepts and the business we have today.
So just tell us what that concept was. Now, we'll talk about whether that's changed or not, but just tell us what that concept was.
Well, I think for me, when I was in PE, we often spoke to the funders. I was on an advisory board, and we spoke to the limited partners, and they were starting to talk to us about non-financial metrics. They were sort of saying, look, actually, we've got a responsibility as institutional investors to ensure that we're good custodians of the investments we make, and we are doing the right thing in terms of the environment, right things in terms of the community, and right things in terms of governance. And professionalizing businesses is not just about financial KPIs. So I was hearing this conversation thinking, this is brilliant. What a fantastic change that's happening within private equity. And it was aligned with, my focus in terms of where I wanted to go, but there wasn't that many solutions out there. Could you find high quality of consulting with tech-enabled data points that would enable an SME to simply adopt really premium consulting advice and high quality support to embed sustainability? And it just wasn't there back in 2019-20. So it's like, right, well, actually, if we can do this and we can start driving material reduction in carbon emissions, and we can help businesses put in place strategies which makes them more successful as businesses, but also do their part in terms of the UK in particular, in terms of the environmental challenge. What an amazing exam question to try and answer. And that's what we set out to do.
So what was it that you were going to do to achieve that goal?
Well, after a lot of hard thinking and probably pivoting 2 or 3 times, to be candid, because you never get it right first time. We didn't get it right a number of times. And actually, so we played around with lots of thoughts and lots of ideas. And we felt that we should support the SME community and the funding community, because that's where there's a need. The large consultancies will help the large enterprise companies. But this is going to come down everybody's supply chain. And the reality is the SMEs cannot afford highly expensive consulting. They need something that's quick and easy, that delivers for them, but is aligned around their other commercial goals and adds value to their businesses. And that was the focus. And that's what we've gone and built. And we've now recruited a team of developers. We've got 5 or 6 developers on board, so it's our proprietary technology, and we recruited a team of consultants as well. And it's the combination of those two with our marketing and sales resource that drives the business.
So let's just look into the business itself. When you founded it, it was the 3 of you who came together. Were you the only 3 working on all of this, or did you immediately employ people, staff, premises, and all that goes with a business?
It was started with the 3 of us for probably 4 or 5 months. And, actually, they always say, recruit to fill your weaknesses, don't they? Well, actually, Anthony and Mark have got very different skill sets to me, but very complementary. So Anthony was a marketeer. And he worked in the compliance industry and built his own business supporting compliance companies to reach their audience. And Mark had been the CEO of a software business and also worked within green tech in terms of LED lightings and wind turbines. And with my investment experience, strategic experience, and sort of environmental experience and energy experience, it just felt that was a good win. Now, that's great to start with, but actually, doing the do and building the the technology and the carbon accounting methodology, of which we needed to do. We needed talent to do that, so that's where we started. And that's where we
so you've got the skill set between the three of you, but you do need doers as well, don't you, to make this happen?
Yeah.
Let's just we'll come back to this, but let's just focus on you reference a platform. What is it that you have got?
So. What we've got is the ability to pull data from businesses, whether it's their financial accounts, their energy data, whatever it is, it's pulled through into our platform, and that delivers an automated GHG emissions carbon report. So that is done. Our consultants then use that to tailor it to your business, to give you best advice on where you are today and how you can build a net zero pathway to execute that plan. And then we have the platform then helps you workshop that plan, design that plan, and monitor and measure it. So that's what the platform does. And it's pretty complicated. There's hundreds and hundreds of actions on there. There's hundreds and hundreds of policy documents supporting data. There's virtual consultants using AI. We've really invested in thinking about what matters to our audience, and does this make their life easier? Do they trust it? And will it help them? And that's what we sought to do.
Okay, so there's quite a lot of jargon in that, isn't there? About carbon emission reports and so on. So if I'm a private equity funder with a portfolio, or if I'm one of those SMEs, what does this look like to me? Yeah,
so we work with many funds. So the fund will sit there and say, right, actually, what should I do? I've got the funders we go to wanting data. And actually, we've got portfolio companies that have got real responsibilities to grow their businesses and achieve their ambitions in terms of what they're doing. But we need this data to provide to our funders. But we also want to help professionalize these investments and make them even better for the next owner. And a big part of professionalization is putting in place the ESG strategy, so the framework. So
what is an ESG strategy?
So it covers environmental, social, and governance. But the way I talk, which is you're right, is jargon. But what I would say is, when I sit in front of you as a business owner or any C-suite teams, what are the values and what are the goals that you want to achieve alongside your financial goals? What really matters to you? Is it recruiting in your local community people from an underprivileged background? Is it equality? Is it the environment? Is it actually you want to reduce your footprint? What matters to you and your team? Where are your values?
So this isn't one size fits all at all.
It's very much customized. And then it's how do you want to implement that plan and do it well? And what do you want the benefits of that plan to be? Because I get asked quite often by business owners, look, I can do all this, John, and I feel good about doing all this, but in terms of my business, so what? Yeah. Why on top of everything else, cost of living crisis, finding great talent, where does this sit in terms of my priorities? And the so what is in the business model adaptation and the ability to differentiate yourselves and the ability to do the right thing and protect revenue, generate revenue, reduce cost, and build a brilliant business. And that's what really motivates our clients when we talk to them. It's trusting that we're doing it well, and it's differentiating them in their market and creating value for themselves and feeling really empowered with their employees that they're doing the right thing and they've got a purpose-led, passionate culture.
So there's a lot in that to look at. So having a purpose beyond just the balance sheet and the profit and loss account, I suppose. What is the raison d'etre for this business? Why a lot of people don't just do it for money, do they? They do it for wider social.
Definitely. And I think if you ask any entrepreneur when they're on their rocking chair at the end, what are they most proud of? And it will be that they've built a brilliant business, but it will be that they've helped X number of employees pay their mortgages and bring up their families and support them in the right way. But it may be that, they've really helped their local community or actually, they've influenced the behaviors of their suppliers, their clients and their employees to really care about maybe the environment and make a difference. And it's weird because I've spent my life talking about financial metrics in private equity, and I'm now talking about what do you care about to owners, and it's a much more passionate and much more interesting conversation.
Yes, I can well imagine. And I one of the things you mentioned there is the engagement of employees, and I'm guessing that whilst they're pleased to take their salary home, the profits is not the be all and end all to them. So that presumably, if they have a part in this purpose, it retains staff, it keeps them motivated, they feel as though they're coming to somewhere that's not just a profit-making machine.
And I think that's becoming more and more important. We work with lots of professional services firms, business services firms, technology firms, and there's just a talent war out there. Mm-hmm. And so, sometimes you feel like you're being interviewed as the owner of a business versus interviewing, don't you? And actually, the questions that are being raised around evidence that you've got a great culture, how can you prove that to me? Where, what's your policy on this? We get asked these questions more and more and more. And in fact, part of what we do is survey thousands and thousands of employees for the businesses we work with. And I would say over 80% of the employees we survey say that taking personal accountability in helping support the fight against climate change is the sort of level we see. And they want to work for a business that feels the same way. And this is something that is becoming so powerful and so relevant that, it's this cultural change, isn't it? Mm. And I think to drive change, if you can combine holistic benefits, financial benefits, engagement benefits with making a difference, then you've cracked it, haven't you? And that's what we're trying to do.
I think that's fascinating. And as you say, every company is different, and it's not all about one thing, one size fits all. But I certainly think you've touched on something there with the climate change and net zero. Do you want to talk a little bit about policy in that area? And clearly at the moment we have a new government committed to net zero. The question mark, I suppose, is around when. And how your business fits in with that. So talk a little bit about the policy and then come back to...
Yeah, I think over the last 18 months with the change in government, with the Conservatives making statements around their strategy around net zero, softening a little bit pre-election, and then what's happened with Labour coming in, there has been a change. Now, has that change been truly evidenced quite yet? Well, Labour are only just in power, and they're starting to talk about that, and I'll come on around the things they've highlighted, but there's more to be seen from them, and I think there's more planned, I suspect, as well. But I think, it's in law that the UK needs to be net zero, and that by 2050. And so, everybody's under an obligation to meet those requirements. Now, as a consequence of that, the government led by bringing in place procurement acts around the NHS and local governments and central governments, where to tender, you need to have a carbon reduction plan in place for those contracts. So that's a tangible, real point where there's teeth to businesses that operate within those public sector environments. They have to do that. And then you're seeing, alongside that, other large enterprises doing the same thing. So whilst there's law in terms of what you need to do, there's also commercial pressure to do this as well. So to give you an example, the large four supermarkets, Amazon, Procter & Gamble, they now want every part of their supply chain to have in place carbon reduction plans. So this is really important, because this is about protecting your business, protecting your revenue, and keeping successful in what you do. So that pressure's there. But could they do more? So we've seen the Conservatives sort of soften on electric vehicles. We've seen them soften on particular other areas. And unquestionably, I feel that had an impact in people's attitude commercially to net zero. Because we're flip-flopping, aren't we? What do we really want to do by when? Can I take this seriously? Do I trust the government to execute that? That unquestionably had a softening in businesses' focus on this area. But Labour now, have come in, and in terms of GB Energy, in terms of these themes that they've announced already, their whole premise about economic growth is in a large way predicated on the transition to a sustainable country and business environment. And that is something that we're yet to see come to fruition, but obviously is part of the budgetary conversations that are happening very, very soon. So I think there is unquestionably going to be more support and more pressure. The thing that I think is really important is that evidence is that people are starting with compliance. I need to do this because I need to operate in this way, or I can't operate without having in place the compliance requirements I need. But what the best businesses are seeing is the capacity to change and adapt to benefit from this huge transition. This movement towards a sustainable economy is going to be an industrial revolution. Actually, it's only just started. The mood music is only going one way. Those that go early can truly differentiate yourself. And you look at e-commerce, you look at B2C, you look at all of these themes. There's a lot of talk and execution around these areas. But the truth will be the evidence and the data to support that it's true, that it's happening, and that they're on that path in the right way.
That's absolutely fascinating. And I think, interested on your views as to when you get to the tipping point when it is no longer compliance, but it's culture.
Yeah.
It does happen. I can think back to things like the anti-bribery legislation, where now every major business requires small businesses to have an anti-bribery policy. You don't think about it anymore, do you, at all? But what do you think it will take in this, or what do you expect perhaps in this next budget, which will help drive us towards net zero? And can you think of any measures that would help business see it as a benefit, perhaps tax benefits or the like? What do you think will be ahead of us?
I think there will be sticks and carrots, as you say. So I think if you look at streamlined reporting, SECR, if you're a business of a certain size, larger organisations, you have to file your energy consumption and your plan as part of your audited accounts. That's going to move down to smaller businesses.
Where are we in terms of the levels that you have to be at before you report at the moment?
It's a high bar. So I think that's an area that unquestionably will come down over time. The second piece is the teeth to the compliance. So, actually, does it really matter if I comply or not? And we all know that takes a little bit of time. But it's truly starting to be evidence that it is real. So there's ESOS reporting in terms of, this is about building reporting that you need to do. I know clients that have had letters from the Environmental Agency. They've had, multiple letters from the Environmental Agency, and they need to take action. They need to do it. And so this is coming. So compliance is one end. But in terms of the carrot, I think this is the other end. And I would say to any business owner who's looking at, as a private equity individual for 20 years, if you're looking to raise capital, if you're looking to attract a good multiple at exit, if you're looking to get through the due diligence process in an impactful way, if you're wanting to look as professional as possible and well structured and well organized from a governance perspective possible, and you ultimately could see yourself exiting to private equity or businesses that differentiate in terms of what they do around ESG, you should do this, and this will be generating value for you and your businesses going forward. So I'll give you a couple of examples.
Very helpful.
Big business, but a business that everybody knows, Biffa. So Biffa in 2012 was a waste to landfill business. So, dare I say, perceived to be a dirty business. It was insolvent in 2012. They repositioned the business, so business model adaptation. They looked at the market and they said, where do we need to be to reposition this company? So they went waste to energy. We should be looking at actually being a renewables business, not a waste business. Their share price quadrupled over the next 10 years. And they were bought by an impact fund, a US impact, a specialist fund that focuses on renewables for $2.1 billion in 2021.
So 9 years after insolvency.
Yeah. And that's classic, that clear strategy, which is how do we take advantage of the shift, this massive transition that's coming to really leverage where we are. And then you look at, other businesses, they've gone the other way. And there's I won't name names, but there's a number of fast fashion businesses that were de rigueur for such a long time. And one of the most famous ones at the moment has share prices reduced fourfold because of the association with wastage, the association with fast fashion, the association with flying clothes all around the world just to have them on pegs. This is the change that's happening in front of our eyes. And I just think any business that can lead in this area can win more business, can differentiate itself and be more valuable at exit. And that's how entrepreneurs should look through this. It's a little bit like AI for me. Sustainability, the transition to a sustainable economy, and AI are the two largest industrial revolutions that we're looking at over the next 10 years. Do you want to just be compliant, or do you want to lead? And that's what's so exciting about it.
And you honestly think that as a company that's at the forefront of developing your environmental credentials, you can get a higher value?
I do. I mean, my view is, I work with lots of private equity funds, Inflection, Sonova, LDC, Business Growth Fund, loads and loads of funds. They're not doing this for fun. They're doing this because they want to be good custodians. They want good growth, but they know it adds value. Now, the cornerstone of value creation, of course, is always revenue growth, margin enhancement, sustainable earnings. Tier 1, unquestionably.
Yes.
Tier 2, though, professionalization, great governance, great health and safety, great cybersecurity policies, but also adapting your business model to be the most effective and efficient within the market. So that business model adaptation is, if you're a heavy energy user, why not be as efficient as you can with energy consumption? It's, why wouldn't you? If your client base is orientating itself towards its supply chain, being very focused on ESG, why don't you go early and win a load more business by doing that? These are the themes that are just there. And secondly, £1.2 trillion have been raised in the last 4 years by impact funds. These are funds that specialize on businesses that either lead within their sector around sustainability or specialize in sustainability. Now that's a wall of money looking for investments. Why not be attractive to that audience?
That is an amazing statistic. That's a huge sum of money.
It's enormous, and it's just growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, and for those listening, why wouldn't you adapt your business to create a greater opportunity to find an investor?
Yeah.
You're increasing the pool of investors or those who will buy.
I love it because, and that's why I love working with SMEs and entrepreneurs because they get it. Why is there a flood of entrepreneurs like I'm trying to be, coming into this environment? Because it's purpose and it's really commercially sensible. And those that get it will lead. And I think, whether that's brand reputation, whether that's employment engagement, whether that's cost savings, whether that's revenue protection, whether that's value creation and exit or opportunity to generate more higher fundraisings, why wouldn't you do it? And that's that, especially if you can make it simple and you can knock over the barriers to entry, it's a bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah. And coming back to the company itself, how is that intertwining itself within that whole setup? What is it doing currently, if you like, to get a piece of that market?
For us, so we're coming back to the conversation that we're having. We're looking at where's the like to do versus the need to do in the market, because it's an emerging market. But the areas that we orientate ourselves towards are those channels or those sectors where we see an absolute core clear benefit now. So we're working in partnership with compliance firms. We're working in partnership with procurement firms. We're working in partnership with professional service firms. We're working with tech firms that want an ESG solution to be added to their offering. So that's a really, really key area. And we're a strategic enabler for a lot of businesses in a way, which is how can we start a really interesting conversation to talk about how we can engage about this subject matter, but also our broader services. So for law firms, actually, the ability to support on policy documents, governance, the ability to give really strong advice about travel policies. Everything's going to change. How you operate in hybrid working. How do you best protect yourself from a governance perspective about claims? It just creates an enormous amount of other conversations and other work once you get into the weeds of taking outcomes and driving action.
So tell me a little bit about what products you've got at present and what you're planning.
So we've got a range of things. It's all customizable. So we try and do lots of things. Not everything, that'd be mad. Yeah. But
it's a big market.
Big market. Try and do lots of things. So if you want to be B Corp, for example, which is
what's B Corp?
B Corp is a movement which is global, which is around businesses embedding purpose within their business. So it covers you have to apply, you have to provide evidence, you have to change your policies. You actually, James, you'll understand this very clearly, you have to amend your articles of association to say you're not just financially orientated, you're also purpose orientated. So it's about businesses aligning around purpose as well as shareholder engagement, really. And there's thousands of them out there, but we help businesses with B Corp, we help businesses with ESOS, we help businesses with training, whether that's IEMA courses, whether it's carbon literacy. We have a Flotilla climate school, so we can help get everybody up to speed really effectively. And then we strategically help you design out your framework. So, and by the way, this is really important. You do not need to be perfect to do this work. Just get started. Use the data you've got. Work out what you want to achieve. Make sure it's aligned with your commercial business plan, your costs, what you can afford. Just get started, and then just apply a multi-year approach to it and say, what would good look like? One of the big issues for businesses is a fear of greenwashing. So one of the main things we do is give them the data, the confidence, and the approach to talk publicly through reporting about what they do. And what I think is massively important here is say what you have done, say what you're going to do, but say what you're not doing, and use data to evidence the things that you've done and the things that you're going to do once concluded, because that is so powerful, because it enables you to feel really confident about talking about your sustainability journey or your ESG journey to your audience.
Now that could be quite interesting for some people listening to this. Say what you're not doing.
Yeah.
Just talk me through why would you do that?
Because I think the reality is it's just an open question all the time. So everybody's exposed to being challenged by their corporate literature or their vision statement or their purpose-led goals. And, we all see more and more of this. And I think for me, it isn't hypocritical to say we are absolutely focused on reducing our carbon footprint by 7% per annum, for example.
Yes.
But we need to transition the way we operate in order to affect that. So at the moment, we're a global business that flies our teams around the world, and we do it in a certain way. And this is something that we're looking at really, really carefully. And we're building a policy and a strategy to address this. But the way we operate, we cannot not travel, have travel. And I think CEOs, entrepreneurs, business people understand that certain things are within their gift and certain things aren't. And I think this is super important. So we talk about, what do you have control over?
Yes.
What do you have influence over?
Yes.
And what is outside of your control? And let's build a framework around that. And then you can relax and feel confident, because actually a huge part of decarbonisation will be outside of your control. It'll be the energy grid. It'll be your large suppliers, Google and so on, getting their act together and doing those things. You cannot pick up the phone. I can't pick up the phone, I can tell you for sure, and say to Google, by the way, guys, can you just crack on with your carbon reduction plans, because we use Google adverts and it's something that's really annoying me because my footprint's too high. We have to be really honest with ourselves and pragmatic about these things.
And that actually ties in with your comment about making a start rather than reaching perfection, because making a start is clearly not perfection. But as you say, you certainly can't control everything. So if you make a start, the world hopefully will get better with greater policy making and others doing their bit as well. Perhaps the grid becoming greener, for example. We may see that in the next budget.
It's such a thing. It's the biggest barrier to entry. Look, I'm not ready. I can't. It's too much work. This is just too hard. Well, the greenhouse gas emissions. Best advice is just get going and then enhance. And you think about it. How long did it take, for us to get refined chartered accounting standards in place? It took decades and decades and decades and decades. If we wait from a carbon accounting perspective to get to the same point, we'll have missed the bus. we have to focus on outcomes and actions and use the data to give us sufficient guidance on what we should be doing, not waiting for perfect data. Now, that's quite controversial. Yeah. People might tell me off for that. But, we've worked with Leeds University, the Priestley Centre for Climate Change. We work with lots of high premium organisations, science-based targets, all these themes. So we are very, very proud of our robust data and, premium enterprises users. But part of the communication, honesty of the debate is this will refine year in, year out, but it shouldn't stop us changing what we can change and making wise decisions.
That's really interesting, and I think it's quite enlightening that we see governments, we see big organisations being held almost to impossible standards on the environment, and for it to be done now. And I don't for one moment say that they shouldn't reach those, but there just isn't the ability at the moment to do that. But if I am a small business, and I am a small business, but I'm busy on everything at the moment, what does getting started look like, let's say, for a manufacturer or a professional service firm? What does it actually entail?
Yeah, so, we've got a range of products. I would say just use spend-based data to measure your footprint. Scopes 1, it's called Scopes 1, 2 and 3, which is your full footprint. You can measure it based on spend and activity, right? So what you do is you start the strategy, you measure what's available to you now, and then you refine and enhance that as you go forward. If we start with spend-based data, we can pull that through into our system really, really quickly. We can use APIs for your financial information, and we can give you your carbon footprint and a net zero trajectory with actions within 10 days a week, and we've done that. And the cost of it, I'll be candid with you, the cost of it is, can be around £2,500. So if you're thinking, hang on, I could reduce my energy bills here. I've got something I can put on my website. I can protect my revenues. I can send this to my prospects and my customers, and my employees will love me because I'm doing the right thing. That isn't too scary from a time perspective and a cost perspective. And we've worked really hard to get it down to that price and make it that slick and simple and efficient. But that's where it gets started. And then guess what? You can move to really advanced embedded strategies, business model adaptions, all of that work, but phase it for when it suits you. Yeah. And that's the joy. There's no wrong. There's just customizing it for you, and that's the key.
Yeah, and I think the tech that you use, which you've mentioned, I suppose that is what gives you the competitive edge. This is not, talking about a figure that low, you couldn't do that if that were multiple man hours.
That's it. It's been scary, James. What we sort of somebody told me these were wise words: build it and they will come. It's quite scary words now, actually.
I can imagine, because there's quite a lot put into the development.
Yeah,
you've invested heavily in the development.
It's been a lot, but if we want to make a difference, we've got to serve that end of the market that just needs a solution and get going, and we need to serve this asset manager premium enterprise market as well, with high quality consulting, but also embedded tech. Yeah. And what we try to do is cover both ends. But I think the market's at the compliance end at the moment, because people need to get started and show they're on the right path. They'll upgrade as they go, and that's where we are.
So that's quite a low investment to get started on the path, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then I suppose once you are started, once you, as you say, know what your spend data looks like and how that, and that's presumably miles in the car and
energy,
that sort of thing, energy cost and all that sort of thing. It does focus the mind, doesn't it? And can you get this perhaps cheaper, better, more efficient? That might be simply solar panels or something that will give you energy direct to your desk.
That's it. And it's high, because it does feel complex. People working from home, do I have to spend all this money? What do these solutions look like? And just by putting in place energy audits and some sort of tracking devices on your energy consumption, we've saved businesses £500,000. Which is very, very quickly for that sort of cost of investment. So there's real wins here. But I think this does need to be embedded around your broader business decision making, and that's why you need to be sort of businessmen talking to business people, talking to business people, which is what feels the order of priorities. And that's why I think setting that framework in place, first of all, having the data, having some actions that are quick wins, that are cost effective, that shows progress. Great start. Let's just start there and work forward.
Yeah. Let's everybody take that step.
Yeah.
Let me just ask about asset managers, because that's the other side of the business, isn't it? And what are they looking for?
As asset managers, these are very capable, bright commercial animals, and they're looking to add value to the businesses that they've invested in to make them better for both a value creation perspective and also a reputation perspective. That's what they're looking for. But they're also very conscious that they're asking those C-suite and entrepreneurs for data all the time, and so they've got to balance throwing more things at them with where's the value going to come. So they're looking for solutions which enables them to look at their own business, their own operational footprint, their own funds, their own sectors, and look at where their footprints are. But they're also looking for partners that can help support their portfolio companies to also do the same in the manner in which we've talked about, simply in a premium way that's high quality, that's data-led. So that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. And I suppose for those companies that they're investing in, which I suppose are typically quite small, we go back to our previous conversation, it's not a big first step for them to take, is it?
Well, that's what we've learned. I mean, we got that wrong, so when we're working with larger funds, our more premium product, was absolutely fine. It's been taken, it's been great. But actually for VCs and for smaller funds, they sort of looked at us with our larger products and went, blimey, not sure that's a priority right now. We can employ another person for that one. So this is why we've looked at our offering and sort of tried to reshape it and have different solutions for different audiences. And we all learn, don't we? But we got that right for one audience and wrong for another. So we had to adapt.
Can I ask you about that? Because that's really interesting. As a business person, I'm constantly reflecting on, are we doing the right thing? How do we adapt? How does that conversation work within the business? We're not getting this quite right. How are we going to find out what it is that we should be doing? How do we get to there? How does that conversation happen in the business?
We've got effectively three directors. We've got a tech director, we've got a marketing sales director, and we've got a consulting director. And then you've got us, the three founders. And we've all got opinions, by the way. But what we have got is a trusted. I think we've got a really good trusted position where failure is good, failure is fine. My tech guy says we should celebrate failure, but that's a step too far for me. Thank you for that, Dan.
I get his point.
He's right. He's probably right. But I think listening to our market, listening to our clients, understanding where we're losing. I mean, I think that's a really key theme. Why are we losing? Being brave enough to ask for feedback on why I lost. Is it price? Is it product? What is it? So we spend quite a lot of time on that. We speak to our clients a lot. We ask for feedback a lot. And there's loads of things. There's just so many things that, we've had to change and move. Because it's a fast moving market as well. Pricing is really intriguing for me. We get told we're too cheap. We get told our product's too all consuming in one way. So you get both sides of that. So we sit down, we have monthly management meetings, we have one-to-ones, we have client review meetings, and we just try and learn. But the problem then is you want to change 13 things, not 2.
and how do you prioritize?
We've just had the session this morning, actually. So I would honestly usually say I don't know, but and it is a bit. But I think what we've done is this morning on something we've said. What is the priorities that we bring to market that we know are gaps right now, and then how much time will that take? What capacity within the team do we have, and how do we resource it to deliver it? Oh gosh, we're going to have to push that one out. We're going to have to push that one out. We're down to these 2. Right. Well, that's it then. So we have that. We have a process. We use Mondays. We use all these different methodologies of really ensuring we've got frameworks in place and sprint calls and conversations, and we just try and organise ourselves in that way. It's always the same though. Right, we've got a plan, and then something comes left field, doesn't it?
Yep.
And it's like, and then we sort of go,
new plan.
Yeah. Where does that sit in terms of the priorities? And the team rightly, challenges on that, because we've got to, when it's a dev-related product, you can only do it at a certain pace in a certain time, and you can't change it all the time.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because as you say, once you've committed to that development, you've got the developers on board doing that, and you don't want to go off half-cocked at any of this. You want to commit to it.
Yeah, the thing we've done quite well is we've manually done things first and then built them. So we've tested them from a consulting perspective with clients, and then built them with an understanding of what's happened. And then we've had, trials with clients as well. We've had a brilliant relationship with one of our first private equity funds, and I feel they've been embedded in terms of shaping our product. And they've had a real influence on us about what they need and how it should work. And a great example is they've got quite a large portfolio, but multiple sectors. So we don't want to customize everything, but we need some flexibility to work for those different sectors. Yeah,
because I suppose each of those different sectors will have different governance, environmental needs, won't they?
Yeah, exactly.
And drivers.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So you do manage to sort out what your priorities are.
Getting better at it. I think getting better at it.
But I think that comes back to a point of general application, isn't it? You've got to be adaptable in the market. There's no point flogging the same.
And I would say, and this is really true, I'm lucky to have my two founders, because we really challenge each other, but we help each other. And because we've known each other for a long time, there's trust there. So, we do work well on those priorities, and we often have different views, but we get to the right answer by sort of working well together to reach that point. And I think that I'm lucky to have that reach to be able to sort of debate those things through.
Just out of interest, when you don't agree, do you have a sort of methodology where you reach a decision? I say that because I know of one business where if they cannot agree, they have nominated a pub in London which they will go to until drinking hours are finished, and they will agree by the end of it, or else they will, on that instance, they say they will dissolve the business. Hasn't been tested to destruction. But you can't agree all the time, can you?
No, and I think, we don't agree all the time, and I think it'd be really unhealthy if we did, if someone defaulted to one individual all the time and they made the calls. I think that we've got the strength of our director team as well, and so there's different tiers of discussions that happen. But I do think our responsibility, and we're getting better at this, is there's a founder group that we're aligned, and then there's a director group we're aligned as well, and there's two levels of challenge there. One with the founders and one with the directors, and that's how we're going through the prioritization process now. But you're right. We quite often go to the pub as well, by the way. But we have that's a brilliant idea. I haven't anointed a pub to go to.
It's written into the shareholder agreement, the name of the pub as well.
So. I love it.
It's quite a good little thing. So just one interesting question I've got for you is, for many small businesses, the founder isn't necessarily the best person to be the CEO. How do you manage that relationship between director and founder, letting obviously the CEO or other C-suite role get on with it, but still influencing as founders? How does that balance work?
Again,
what's your view on it?
Again, I think that is really hard, and I think we've sort of, as part of moving from startup to scale up, we've been having really good open conversations about that. So we sort of moved from a tripartite structure where different members of the founders have responsibility for their areas of expertise, to bringing this now to those directors reporting into the CEO, and that the other founders act as very important sounding boards for the CEO and very important challengers to the CEO. And they also bring their great expertise in the areas on projects or points of specialism that they have. So and I don't think without the depth of the relationship we have and the status we're at, that would have been as smooth as it has been. It's created a lot of debate, and we had a number of sessions to get there. But that's just where we've headed to right now. So you're absolutely right. Being candid, I'll tell you whether that's worked in a year's time. But you often see professional CEOs being brought in at the next stage as well, and things evolving like that. And so, but for now, that's where we've got to, and that's how we've dealt with that scenario. And it all stems from trust, I think, to be honest, and respect for one another.
And you've known your founders and the board for a while.
Yeah, I mean, one of the guys I've known since university, and the other guy drove me to my wedding. So,
really?
Yeah. So we've known each other a really
That's
long
trust,
time.
isn't it? If he can get you to your wedding, he can get you through a business, can't he?
It made me go. No, it didn't. No.
And you are still happily married.
Very.
So that's very interesting. And in terms of, I've seen this in a recent example, but just making sure the communication between, in this case, founders and directors is good. You were talking about lots of little bits of communication that you have together and maintain that relationship.
Yeah.
So easy sometimes, isn't it, to get lost in the work? And
I think, we haven't got there ourselves. And, that's often where a chairman comes in and really helps with that.
Yes.
But, where we are, we have our company goals. We then have our quarterly targets. We have those quarterly targets allocated to the owners, being the directors. And then, who do they want to support on those projects with the right specialism, the right skill set? And, they're nearly delegating up as much as delegating down.
Oh, is that so?
And that creates the autonomy for them to be able to pull the right people in as necessary. And again, that's how we do it.
Yeah, and every business is different, isn't it?
Yeah.
But and so look, just in terms of what we might expect coming up, understand you've got a new website.
Yes, we've got a new website that's going live hopefully this week, beginning of next. So, and that's just been repositioned for our new offerings, and sort of celebrating maybe some of the wins we've had of late. So that's quite a nice moment for us.
Oh, that's excellent. Are you able to mention any of those publicly available wins at the moment for Flotilla?
We work with multiple funds. We work with the Times Higher Education. We work with consultancies like Q5. We work with Vaccination UK. We work with lots of healthcare businesses. We've got partnerships we're just announcing, which I'll hold off saying. But yeah, I mean, some really exciting, high quality client base, and we work with multiple law firms, as you know, and the big new news for us is the launch of this carbon reduction product, which is this fully automated solution, and our portfolio manager solution. And that product, which I haven't touched upon, enables enterprise companies or asset managers through a single pane of glass get visibility on the whole of their portfolio, whether that's their supply chain, their client base, or their investee companies. And we're really excited about that. We're really excited about our compliance and supply of product. And, it's a big question mark what will happen, where they'll go. But next year we'll know. And that's just super exciting.
That does sound absolutely excellent. And if I'm an asset manager, let's just understand that I've got on one screen there everything that I need to know about my investee.
Yeah, you can see where they are on their data, where they are on their project plans, where they are on their net zero pathways. You'll be able to see everything you need to see to guide them, support them, and really help them succeed. That's
absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
John, thank you very much indeed for coming along. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you, James. It's very kind of you to invite me, and I've really enjoyed the session.
No, thank you. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.